This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From beautiful design templates and custom domains to full-blown e-commerce, email campaigns, powerful analytics, and now scheduling that you can set up in minutes, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and today I want to talk to you about Fujifilm's just announced $999 X-S10. Briefly, maybe. I've had a pre-production sample in for the past few days, which actually means the weather was rubbish until yesterday. Not much chance to get out and shoot anything interesting. I'm expending enormous amounts of energy not reading the newspaper or watching news programs or listening to op-ed podcasts. And we have the usual pre-production caveats and an instance or three where those caveats have been warranted, like the connectivity between Fujifilm's camera mode app or our Ninja 5. I can't get it to take 4K input. Doesn't matter. I was never going to do the usual camera review this time around anyway. It's not that kind of camera. Forget that the X-S10 only has a single card slot. Walk away from your chagrin about the smallish EVF. For if you believe that a second card slot will erase all of your worldly anxieties, or if you cannot compose the shot of the century without pixel peeping while you shoot, grasshopper, you are missing the forest for the trees and harbor no memory of the century preceding us when no such redundancy or capability existed except in the form of additional cameras around one's neck and the skill of imagining in one's mind the impact of parallax that Ouija, Cartier-Bresson, Eisenstadt, Avedon, Frank Meyer, Abbott, Lang, Bourke-White, Meyerowitz, and so many others never burdened themselves with such trifles. Let go of the Pez-sized battery capacity. Make peace with the fact that the AF is not as good as the best of Sony or Canon. Lay down all thought that you have to have 60p at 4K instead of 1080. For if you did not bring extra batteries in the first place, or believe that your clients will see the difference in your wedding photographs and videos, then you will have missed capturing the shifting tides and ripples of emotions, the small moments which, had you caught them, would have left your clients breathless, in tears, and forever grateful, perhaps lifelong friends. Exhale and open your clenched fist as you relax your requirements of internal unlimited 10-bit 422 recording. For if it matters that much, dear fellow, why do you not already have a Ninja 5, a Panasonic GH5, or an A7S3, a C200, or a Blackmagic Ursa? Finally, release your mind from the bondage which whispers to you relentlessly, incessantly, that full frame is all, and analog dials are nirvana. For it is clear that a 26.1 megapixel X-Trans4 sensor and X-Processor 4 will verily blow out of the water the image quality of a 35mm Tri-X or superior 400 negative without sweat. If you can do those things, you may see what I see. That the X-S10 sets the bar for the intersection of value, compactness, performance, and joy in the mirrorless interchangeable lens APS space. That the X-S10 will be, for many of us, not at all an entry-level camera, but instead an aspirational level do-it-all mirrorless hybrid with excellent image and build quality, great ergos, very good autofocus performance when you don't subject it to whack-a-mole testing, or my patented, utterly simple yet surprisingly difficult MISO continuous video autofocus test. That the X-S10 has all the photo spec one needs for anything less than fast twitch sports and wildlife at mural sizes, all the video spec one needs for YouTube, and IBIS sufficient to make a meaningful difference for photographers exploring lower shutter speeds than they ever thought possible handheld, and video shooters looking for much smoother handheld pans, and in a pinch, dynamic movement when a gimbal isn't available. At an industry-jarring $1,000, with access to the glass you need 99% of the time, the glass you want, call it 90% of the time, at prices that make sense for any of us who can afford to get into cameras in the first place, irrespective of sensor size, resolution, or budget. But Before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to the good folks at Squarespace for making this episode of Three Blind Men and an Elephant possible. With their elegant layouts, click, drag, and drop interface, customization tools, excellent support, and more, Squarespace makes it a cinch for photographers and content creators, really any small to mid-sized businesses in any industry, to have an outsized presence on the web, and that has never been more important than now. Squarespace can literally have you up and running in minutes with a beautiful website and custom URL tailored to the way you want to present yourself. They really understand what it takes to build your online identity and grow your business. When you're ready to move beyond your basic site, Squarespace has you covered with their fully integrated and extensible platform. We know. Not only do we use Squarespace for our production company, blog, documentary, and personal photography sites, but we've integrated email blasts and commerce. We book our street photography workshops, sell our Streets of New York book, and just now have set up scheduling for those new one-on-one live video sessions I mentioned earlier, all through Squarespace. It just works. Not a systems admin in sight. Which doesn't mean I don't have questions, but again, Squarespace's customer service is terrific. So, hop over to squarespace.com/you for a free trial and get an extra 10% off your first website or domain purchase when you're ready to really give it a go by using the discount code HUGH at checkout. Again, that's squarespace.com/you and discount code HUGH at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. The flip side, however, is that Fujifilm does need to prioritize updates to the optical design, autofocus performance, and or aperture performance of a number of its lenses, notably the 23, 35, 56, and 90 primes, if it wants to match the best out there from Sony, Canon, and Nikon, especially for video. Fujifilm is reaching the point where, maybe it's just me, maybe it's this week's announcement that Apple is including IBIS in its iPhone 12 Pro series. It's beginning to feel that they, along with most other camera manufacturers, need to take a clean sheet design to their software user interface, or at least take a page from Blackmagic, Hasselblad, Leica, Atomos, and or Small HD. I'm talking about making sure that autofocus options and how they are named are the same across movie and stills. Autofocus confirmation boxes can be turned on or off across movies and stills for all modes, and that we finally have a full, complete, and dead simple touch interface where any function or piece of data can be accessed and changed with a tap, swipe, pinch, where we don't have to uncover the exceptions to or obtuse Boolean logic of the specs in the heat of a shoot. You get the idea. And finally, Fujifilm really does need to get its Cam Remote app in order, though a USB-C tethering option with full touch or equivalent mouse functionality of the rear screen would be even better. And someone like Small Rig, I really like them, or Lock Circle needs to come up with an economically priced, well-designed cage, USB-C and micro HDMI right angle adapter and cable management add-on to the X-S10 ASAP, please, so that we can reliably attach and connect a Ninja 5 for unlimited higher spec external recording. Think of the X-S10 as the love child of Fujifilm's $1,700 flagship 26.1 megapixel X-Trans4 sensor-equipped APS-C X-T4 and their entry-level $500 24 megapixel Bayer-censored X-T200, but inheriting much more from the X-T4. Yet at $1,000, the X-S10 is closer in price to the X-200, making it a bargain compared to everything in the XF lineup, including the just $100 less expensive X-T30, and quite possibly a headache not only for Nikon and Sony's APS-C product managers, but for Panasonic's and the formerly Olympus, now OM, whatever they're calling themselves these days, Micro Four Thirds product managers. Maybe even full-frame product managers too. Specifically, in its size, build quality, latest sensor and processor, recording limits, brand new 30% smaller IBIS system, front control dial, and feel in hand, the X-S10 is functionally a mini-me X-T4, complete with magnesium body to boot, made even better with a deep XH1 style grip, which is now the best in their current X lineup, period, even if the camera is so small, barely larger than an A6600, that your pinky finger has no place to go. Suck it up, sunshine, because there's nothing other than Leica's CL that is nearly as nice, solid, and compact in hand. Although also like the X-T4, the X-S10 retains the OIV micro HDMI port, fiddly back buttons, and too small joystick, suffers from the absence of a headphone jack, made only slightly less unpalatable by the inclusion of a USB-C to 3.5mm jack, which will be the very first thing you lose just when you need it most, cannot simultaneously receive power from the USB-C port and output via the micro HDMI port, so both remain slightly hobbled for longish or back-to-back Zoom sessions that are becoming more and more part of our daily lives. And autofocus performance at the margin, when we demand too much of it, that too often reminds me of a massive swing at the plate, the long arc of that ball heading for the bleachers, and then the sudden dawning realization that it won't make it, running out of arc inside the warning track and into the glove of the left fielder. In terms of EVF, battery, and flippy screen specs, the presence of a built-in pop-up flash to satisfy your inner Bruce Gilden or Mark Cohn, don't do it, resist, golden rule. Absence of a second card slot, 4K 60p, all intra-codec, and what would you call that on the rear, a D-pad? Lack of weather sealing, and on the other hand, the use of the more au courant PSAM dial on the right side of the top plate, and a similarly sized picture-style dial on the left side of the top plate, the X-S10 is pretty much pure X-T200. But Fujifilm has taken the opportunity to implement a number of very solid changes to the secondary controls, with the on-off switch relocated to the collar of the also relocated shutter release, along with the addition of dedicated buttons for ISO and quick menu now on the top plate, much better, and the inclusion of 4 custom profiles available on that PASM dial that I would, to my utter astonishment, absolutely use for different video use cases. The X-S10 is likely to be the easiest, fastest, and most enjoyable migration path to Fujifilm for many of us coming from whatever other camera system we use now. Although that left control dial on the top plate is currently underutilized, I think it makes sense to be able, for example, to assign it as a virtual ISO dial as a bridge for current XTX and XT2X users. Again, no biggie. The bottom line is this: there is very little the X-T4 does, stills or video, that the X-S10 cannot do at precisely the same level for 99% of us, 99% of the time, at 2/3 the size, half the weight, and just about half the price. There is very little any APS-C camera can do that the X-S10 cannot, except 10/10 autofocus performance. It is far more enjoyable to use than any Sony A6 series, far more special in the hand than the Nikon Z5. The X-S10 is far more capable for video, frankly, than the 24-megapixel Leica CL, one of our favorite cameras of all time in Claudia's daily driver, and far more operationally flexible and pretty darn competitive for photography, too. For 1/3 the price of the CL before you start tallying up the differences in lens pricing. In fact, there is very little the X-S10 cannot do that full-frame cameras can, again, except at the margin where few of us ever go. Capable of images like these, for example, no doubt familiar to those of you who know the channel well, taken over the last 2 years with identical sensors, processors, and glass, even sometimes last-generation sensors and processors. and certainly capable of video like this. Because I'm recording this episode on the X-S10 right now with one of my favorite XF lenses for video, the XF16-55 2.8, which is fabulous. Which, as I said earlier, doesn't mean that there isn't clear room for improvement around lenses, user interface, autofocus, and connectivity, nor, with small, relatively inexpensive full-frame cameras like Panasonic's incredibly well-rounded $2,000 S5, and growing L-mount lens ecosystem, Sony's new A7 III rebodied inside the compact $1,800 A7C, and the most complete and performant full-frame mirrorless lens ecosystem in the market. Nikon's 1500 Z5, their Z6 selling right now for between $1,800 and as low as $1,400 new, or their just announced $2,000 Z6 II and Nikon's brilliant and excessively priced Nikkor Z1.8 primes on the one hand, and the $3.7 million EVF dual card slot and 6.5 stop IBIS equipped pixel shifting $998 Micro Four Thirds Lumix G9 and 5-stop IBIS equipped no recording limit 10-bit 422 internal recording up to DCI 4K 30p and UHD 4K 60p 1300 GH5 on the other, that it's a foregone conclusion Fujifilm will achieve the conquest sales growth at which the X-S10 is so clearly aimed. Which leaves us where precisely? I'll sum it up this way. The X-S10 is aimed squarely at the budget-aware enthusiast segment, people who already love photography but appreciate a camera that forsakes the emotional pull of the past for the conveniences of the present. Because of its diminutive size and weight, ergos, excellent stills autofocus performance for this purpose, and image quality, I think the X-S10 is a great street camera, a wonderful travel camera, and a surprisingly intriguing landscape camera. It is absolutely liberating to travel so lightly. Though these days, you can buy an X-T4 for the same $999 with superior EVF and dual card slots and a tilty-only screen that many photographers will prefer. Just add, in this age of social distancing, the 56 1.2, not the APD, not the 51.0, and you are on your way. Because of its diminutive size, weight, ergos, IBIS, flippy screen, mic jack, USB-C to 3.5mm adapter cable for headphone, and fit-for-purpose video autofocus, however, the X-S10 is great for vlogging and should be at or near the top of your list here too. Better than the X-T4 in this case. Just add the smooth, quiet, and optically superb, as I mentioned, 16-55 2.8, and again, you're on your way. Although the 16 1.4 is great for the first category too. Because of its diminutive size, weight, ergos, IBIS, flippy screen, fit-for-purpose AF, and video specs, the X-S10 is a credible B-cam for Fujifilm shooters, an incredible bargain for real commercial video work, especially gimbal work. Though, if you really do need the best video IAF at 1.8 on a 135mm lens for a subject 6 feet away, for 80% more, maybe Sony's full-frame A7C can give you that, as perhaps the 140% more Canon EOS R6 might too, when Canon comes out with an R135 1.8. Though, what scenario can you think of where tracking, say, a celebrity at that distance, where the depth of field, 0.7 inches, likely shallower than the distance from said celebrity's perfectly powdered nose to colored contact lens, is a good idea? I'd recommend instead, if we're talking video, you check out the pair of Fujinon MKX 18-55 and 50-135 T2.9 manual focus cine zooms, which are amazo. Finally, because of its price, size, ergos, and manual of arms, the X-S10 is great for more casual shooters, but at that point, so are a number of even less expensive cameras in the Fujifilm lineup, as well as cameras from Panasonic, Sony, Nikon, and Canon, though none have quite the feel and hand, nor brilliant set of trade-offs of the X-S10. There's so much more I could say about the camera, and more importantly, really, the strategic inflection point, I think not far off, when Fujifilm's decision to maintain two separate lens mounts may come back to haunt it. But hold that thought, because as we come to the end of our time together today, let us once again breathe. Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream. It is not dying. Lay down all thoughts, surrender to the void. It is shining. That you may see the meaning of within, it is being. That love is all and love is everyone, it is knowing. That ignorance and hate may mourn the dead, it is believing. Yeah. Thanks again to Squarespace.com for making this episode of Three Blind Men and an Elephant possible. For all of your website needs, if you're a small or mid-sized business, a solopreneur, Squarespace is the place to go. Get your free, no-strings-attached 14-day trial at www.squarespace.com/hugh. And if at the end you decide you really love it and are ready to go for it, save 10% by using the discount code HUGH at checkout.